Folks, we are live. Welcome to Talking Crit, the pre-Total Con edition. Folks, I'm Mike Tenkar. With me, as always, is Jim Kitchen. And holding up Jim and I with his...
This is weird. Can you put me down there and him up
Oh,
there? Because
all right,
I'm
hold on.
used to being in the
Wow.
basement,
Okay.
and I'm like
All
a
right,
little
all
unsettled.
right.
There we
Well,
go.
You
Jim's
got a
now holding
promotion,
us
though,
up.
man. You got a promotion. Come on, man.
All
I
right,
don't need a promotion. I'm
all
good.
right, all right. Hey, it's Jim, Mike, and Tenkar, right? Yay!
Where I wanted to be.
Oh my gosh!
Are we surviving this weather? Because the cold is just getting old.
Oh,
man.
it's
already
ridiculous.
beaten. It's already done.
It is
I will take
ridiculous.
100-degree heat in the summer
We've been single
cold.
digits for like 3 days, and
Mhm.
the dog is like, I'm not having any more of this. Like, I'm tired of speed pooping. You got to knock this off. Crazy. It's crazy.
It was 17 today here. We did errands. It was 26, and that for Texas, that's ludicrous. So
Yeah. Oh yeah.
at least this part of Texas. Now, if you get the Panhandle, it gets that.
It's
cold.
all puffy coats and scarves and mittens.
It's ridiculous.
So we have so much stuff to talk about tonight. We had a couple of guests that had to back out. One for illness, one with a death in the family, but we're going to try to get them both back on at some point here in the near future. Appreciate everybody being on tonight. I think one of the things that sort of, this is the time of year where we're getting ready for a whole bunch of Kickstarters to launch, which is why we have a whole lot of people that want to come on the show this time of year. One of the things that everybody's talking about is the next Shadow Dark Kickstarter. Is that March, Eric? Is that kickoff
The
in
next
March?
Shadow Dark, I believe it is March.
Yeah.
There's so much coming out. I really
it is March. Yeah, it's March.
And so another one, we're going to have Kim George on talking about the Tom Wom Games Kickstarter for Moose Quest, which, I mean, really and truly, I'll just say now, I understand that they're putting a case package together, so you get a hell of a deal if you buy a box. And this is a game you're going to give everybody for Christmas. So if you don't back for the case pack, you're just crazy. I've played Moose Quest at GaryCon. I've played Moose Quest. I've given Moose Quest to my nieces. It's a great game. It's going to be a lot of fun. But one of the ones that we really wanted to talk about tonight is we wanted to talk about the upcoming Troll Lord Kickstarter. And I've made a lot of jokes on this show about Troll Lord games, which is, number one, they're as bad as Victoria's Secret for junk email. Like, I love Steve to death, but Victoria's Secret was she was a compulsive mailer.
It's true.
And if you've ever backed anything Troll Lord on Kickstarter, you're going to get email, and you're going to get a lot of email. And by the way, you're going to get email on top of email with some email wedged into it. And then there's a big slab of email that wraps the whole thing. And so if you are under a rock and lo and behold, you have never heard of anything from Troll Lord Games, you should know that finally the monolith is coming to crush us all, and that's going to be the Castle Zygi box set.
Now, can I do a little historical? Yep. I'm going to do a little historical background on this. In 2008, the box set came out. That they had planned on releasing, I think, 3 or 4 box sets because they had released Eggsburg, the city of Eggsburg. They would release some of the city streets of Eggsburg. Jeff Talanian, as you may or may not know, Jeff Talanian worked with Gary on this. They had a few other writers also, Brad McDevitt, and I can't remember the others. I'm sorry. Darlene even did a full color map for Eggsburg. So Castles of Gig was going to be the beginning of the most awesome dungeon of all time. Basically, it is Castle Greyhawk under a pseudonym, and the box set was wonderful. It contained an environs map. It contained three booklets.
Yep.
One was the upper area, the castle that's all fallen down and it's all fallen to pieces. Another one is the level below that, which is the first level of Castle Zagig. And there was also something called the Mouths of Madness, I think. And that was caves all along the mountain where Castle Zagig is. So that's as far as it got before Gary passed away, sadly.
And let's be clear that Jeffrey Talanian was working shoulder to shoulder with Gary to get this done.
Absolutely.
A lot of what made all these products so great was Talanian, Talanian managing to take all of Gary's input and bring this to market in an amazing fashion. So,
and the box set is if you have the box set, it is really, really nice. I will say it's very, and it's cheaply done. The box
it's
will fall
fragile.
apart on you.
It's fragile.
And if you read it 3 or 4 times, the books will start falling apart on you.
The corners, if you look at them, the corners just blow out.
Yeah. But it is amazing work of imagination and just just a accumulation of everything we'd hoped for when we were kids. Sadly, after Gary passed, the rights to all this passed to Gail, and she shut it down.
She said, she shut it down.
Shut it all down
hard. She shut it down hard to the point
they couldn't sell any. They couldn't even sell anymore. They had to destroy box sets left at the end of 2008. Anything left in their warehouse that had a gig on it or anything like that had to be destroyed. And
True story. I got an Upper Works box set from Amazon for $25 because they were trying to get rid of them as fast as they possibly could.
Doug got 10 copies signed by Jeff. We had them signed by Jeff. And I believe he got them for a real discount price, Jim. And I'm pretty sure he bought them as like a what do you call it, a box, pack or a crate. And we had 10 packs. We gave them away as raffle prizes. We auctioned some off over the years. I believe we may still have one left, but that's it. But they were going for just peanuts back then. Of course, after that, boom, the price shot up. Now you'll be lucky if you get it for $500-$600. They may even go beyond that. So Jim might know that better than me because he does more.
Yeah, they usually. The problem is they probably peaked at about 6, 5 if you have one with blown corners. I think you're spot in that. But as the monolith has moved further and further, closer and closer, I think the market's tightened up on that. I think a lot of people don't want to let them go, and I think the other side is people who are like, I'm not paying $500 or $600, are just waiting for the Kickstarter. But
that's a history of that. That's where we come from. Is so that happened in 2008. So now here we are, 2025.
So let me tap in and explain that Gail told him burn it all, kill it. If it's not sold by December 31st, 2008, it gets pulped, and so it was, and so that drove a lot of this. And then behind the scenes, the Gygax kids got him together. There was another will. Eventually,
there was never a will filed. So it's not another will. It was the only will.
Well, at any rate, the fact of the matter is that the rights to bring all this out sat with Gail forever. She did nothing. She did get Paul Stormberg to go through all of Gary's effects, to go through all of Gary's papers, to sort of document all of this stuff. And then eventually the court has decided that they wanted to do a testbed project. So Troll Lord Games brought out the Hermit. It did well. It did well enough to convince the court that, like, let's let the Gygax kids do this. And so that brings us to Castle Zagig.
So the Hermit that was a module that was for Legendary Adventures, I believe.
Yes.
And it made over $100,000. That's not terrible at all. That's good. That's really good for a third-party product that most of us had never heard of, but was written by Gary for an old system that doesn't really exist anymore. And that's a pretty good indicator that his stuff would sell.
So we're at a point now where we are roughly a month-ish away from Troll Lord Games launching Castle Zygig, Gary Gygax's Castle Zygig. I'm gonna break my tongue. So let me start off the next part of what we're gonna say, which is there isn't any of the three of us that don't love Troll Lord Games.
Right.
Absolutely. If not for them, we would never see Memorial Tomb. And right. I have it on my shelf there. And that was 100%
can't say enough good things about the Chenault brothers. I really and truly, like, I have literally backed every single Troll Lord Kickstarter. I used to be like the first guy to back it, and then it got enough people that I was never the first person to back it.
I have Troll Lord glassware.
I have Troll Lord glassware. I have T-shirts. I have a backpack. I got a mountain of tchotchkes. But the point is that all three of us have not a bad thing to say about anybody at Troll Lord Games. These are the nicest people. During the pandemic, one of the things, the Chenault brothers are very, very smart. One of the things that they did is they took a look at what they were doing and they decided to bring as much printing in-house as they could. And so they literally built a print shop. Now, if you know anything about printing and you know anything about how this all works, being able to actually print your own games is a tremendous cost savings. You're not jobbering it out and so on and so forth. And where other people were panicking about getting things printed during COVID, the Chenaults went out, bought every last piece of paper they could, stitched it as high as they could to get it in the warehouse, and survived COVID by literally being able to build on all those strengths. We mentioned the memorial tomb. I don't want to get into a long discussion, but the memorial tomb, Ernie's memorial tomb project, was as dead as a doornail. The only reason that it got finished is because, though there's two reasons, right? That he had Benoit actually finished the project. But more importantly, at a GaryCon, the discussion started with Steve about, do you guys think there's any way that you could get this carcass across the line? And I was there. I watched Steve doing the math, and he was like, I just don't know if we should. I'm not sure. And yet they did. And that's why it finally shipped. There were no problems with the money. The money was all locked away in an escrow account.
And Eric can tell you, I mean, that in itself was mind-boggling, because the first thing a failed Kickstarter will tell you is there's no money, that they spent the money.
That's right. So,
and the smartest thing they did was put it in a bank account. Nobody touched it. It sat there, and thank goodness it was still there.
Troll Lord Games has 20 plus years in this industry of demonstrating on a daily and weekly basis why they are one of the most decent companies in the world. So where are we? Well, if you watch this show, you know that we talk about the sort of basic rules of Kickstarter. We talk about looking, before you invest in a Kickstarter or a backer kit, before you throw money at something, you should really look at the project, and you should ask yourself some key questions. You should say, who is this person? Have they ever published anything? Have they got anything under their belt that I would know? Would I recognize? You have access to the same tools we all do. You go out on the internet, you could do search engines, and odds are you can find somebody who's like, I used to be in 4th grade with him, and he always used to sketch that weird shit when we were on the playground. Yeah, he's an artist. Okay, great, right? You can dig and dig and dig and dig and find it, and that's great. But one of the first rules, the number one rule we always have, is you should be leery of backing a project that hasn't been written yet. And the key example of this, the painful example that comes to mind is there's been a couple of failed Kickstarters where they started off with a big bang, and then they backed off, and they died, and they never got funded, because one of the things that comes out is, once I've collected all of the money, I shall begin writing this magnum opus. This is usually the sign of where things are going to go, make the left turn to Albuquerque. And it's something that we've always talked about.
And this goes back to Dwimmermouth.
Yes.
This goes to oh my gosh, there's so many examples out there. Raggy's project that's now on year, what is it, Eric? Yeah,
the rough book, yes.
Year 10,
I don't know.
12.
It funded 12.
So that's what happens when you don't have anything written. It's not good, right? It's just not good.
So let's sort of tie this in. Over the last couple of weeks, as the hype machine starts pouring on, we've been hearing more and more about Castle Zygig and where they're going and what they're going to do. And this is great. All a fan of this. And my guess, I don't know, but my guess is that a lot of what I would call the skeleton of this is going to come from notes that were made, production notes, and everything else that were made back in 2006, 2007, when Troll Lord first began publishing and working with Gary. I'm sure it's going to include some of the things that Paul Stormberg found and documented and archived for Gale. I think we all have a great idea of the skeleton of this, the provenance of the skeleton of this, the foundation of the building, whatever metaphor you choose to use. But in the last couple of weeks, There was it a video, Eric? Is that what? There was something somewhere where somebody essentially said, "We haven't written it yet," and that's not a whoa. Don't back this. That's
it's worrisome. It's worrisome because, as we pointed out for years and years, Eric and I and Jim too, the number one thing you look for in a Kickstarter is it done. There has been so many castles built upon the I'm going to build this when I get the money, and it just doesn't happen. It very rarely happens. It has happened, but it very, very rarely happens because things get in the way. Now I will say, Troll Lord Games is a professional company that is used to deadlines. They put out hundreds of products. That they are no stranger to this. But I will bring out that the project we talked about earlier, the Hermit, was it got us $100,000. This is December of 2023. It is still not shipped yet. It is over a year later. Now it will ship. I heard it will ship next month. But this was an already written project. It was already written. They just had to translate it to another game system and update it and put some tchotchkes and they fleshed it out basically. Yeah. So that was a year. That was basically a module. That was a module. It took them a year to finally get out. This is a very ambitious project. Man, this is extremely ambitious. I looked at what is supposed to come out in the first wave, so to speak, and it's basically what the first box set was. It's going to have the first level of the dungeon. It's going to have the Mouths of Madness. It's going to have the castle. It's basically a redo of the box set.
Well, yeah, okay. I got the list in front of me. It's Castle Zagyt.
You want to bring that up on screen? Can you bring that up on screen? Because I think it's a great way to start, which is reissue what has come before to give everybody the things that was the thing that was out of print for the longest time. It makes perfect sense to me. And truthfully, you can go back and run with that. I think that makes plenty of sense. So in some ways, you could say that it is already written because it was.
Right. Now, I will say that if you look at the Kickstarter for the Hermit, the delivery date was listed as December of 2024. So in the scheme of things, this is not like, oh my God, this thing is so late. It's going to be maybe 3 months late, which isn't, that's not super late in our business. But this is a much more ambitious project. And this much more ambitious project, and it is a lot more. And from what I understand, they're not using. Jeff Talanian has declined to be part of this project because he is involved in his own world, which is Hyperborea, which is understandable. He's got his own gig right now. I do not know who the writers in this project are. I know that Mike Stewart is head writer, which I'm understanding is going to be a job wrangling other writers, because I don't think that Mike is going to write this all himself. But I don't know, guys. I don't know.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't laugh.
I don't know. I don't know who's writing this project. And so, I don't know. So people are saying they've gotten their Hermits. Okay. So that's good. That means it was not even really late. That means that they said December of 2024. If you got it in January, you're fine.
It's actually on time.
But I'm going to be interested in seeing when the delivery date for this is. Because this, to me, is a much more ambitious, much bigger project. And I want to know who's writing it, guys. I don't know who's writing it.
Well, I think what we come back to, I think what we come back to is this first box set out of the gate. I don't want to call it a reprint, don't call it a comeback, but again, it's something that they can reprint the original box set. They can include the other things, and that gets that out the gate, and that kicks off everything. I think that Troll Lord had a reasonable hit when it first came out in 2008, and it was very well received. I think it's going to be massive. I think this first one is going to be enormous. We talk about Brandon Sanderson. I don't think it'll be Brandon Sanderson levels. they're not putting Castle Greyhawk on the box. They can't put Castle Greyhawk on the box. But everybody is wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We understand what this is supposed to be, and we understand where this is supposed to have come from, and so on and so forth. I think we do. I think we do say the things that have to be. We have to say the quiet parts out loud, which is they're going to have a massive Kickstarter. When the bomb goes off, and 30 days later, they pick up the pieces and they see everything. We're going to have something that's easily going to have 2,500 backers, 3,000 backers, 35. I don't know what the number. The number could be sky's the limit. But we're finally going to have something that people have been starved for 17 years, and it's going to be pretty cool. But it's not baked yet. Maybe that's the.
So Robert says that's what I believe too. They're breaking this into 2 to 3 Kickstarters. Most of what's the first Kickstarter is already written. I think that's the point of this is the first Kickstarter is going to be the existing box set, just rejiggered. So that's why it looks so familiar when you look at what is going to be in that first box set compared to what was delivered. I think it is going to be that. I'm pretty sure that's what
it's everything I have in a box somewhere in the basement.
Yes. But hopefully this one will not fall apart when you breathe on it too heavily, and the corners won't explode when the sunlight touches it.
And I think Robert's got a great point, but I disagree. I think there's going to be 3 or 4 box sets. There could be 5 if the first one is huge, and the second one picks up the same kind of element of steam, and so there could be reprints. There could be 5 box sets. We might get who knows, right? But truthfully, the Gygax kids are finally gonna see something come of their father's legacy, which we're all happy about. Mm-hmm. Like that's tremendous. I don't think the 3 of us are trying to sound negative about this. I think what the 3 of us are saying is, like all things, Kickstarter, backer kit, whatever, caveat emptor, right? Watch what you're putting your money at. Look at what you're doing. Ask reasonable questions. Like, I don't want to send a pitchfork and torch mob to Steve Chenault's house and say, is it written? That's not the point. But I think between now and the launch, and I think during the campaign, we can all certainly say, can you give us a better idea of the plans? Like, who's going to be writing this? What kind of team are you going to have? And if they have a $5 million Kickstarter, if they hit the Jumbotron button and they get something massive, they're going to be able to get whoever they want to write this, and they're going to have people knocking the door down to have a piece of this, to be somebody who's contributing to this. Right. That's just the nature of the beast. I see that no matter what. But it's an exciting time, right? It's an exciting project. We're all thrilled to see this again.
And by the way, I had forgotten. There was a writer there about the Worlds of Gygax Kickstarter, which made $300,000.
Right.
That was last year, and that's due to be published June, or delivery of June. Now those were already all written. They're just rejiggering those again also. Okay. But those were all written. But that was a pretty gigantic Kickstarter there too. I'm just happy this stuff's back in print, because for so long, and we said this, and Garrett and Eric and I said this all the time during the early days of Talking Crit. It got to where the name of Gygax was forgotten, because there was literally nothing with his name on it in production. Everything for 10 years, for at least 1 decade, nothing with his name on it was published anywhere. And I absolutely, this is not an exaggeration, I absolutely had people ask me, who's Gary Gygax? They had no clue. This is before, the Game Master's book by John Peterson. This is before the documentaries. For 10 years, he just disappeared, and you had a whole generation of gamers that grew up and had no clue who the man was, because his name had been taken off everything published, and everything he had was being hoarded. And for whatever reason, who knows? I mean, I don't even want to speculate anymore. It was ridiculous.
Well, it all sits with Gail. Gail lost her husband.
Right.
Gail felt like there were people who were trying to take advantage of her. There were a lot of drivers to Gail's actions, but the problem is that it led to a period of inaction. Mm-hmm. And there was nothing whatsoever that was coming out, and I got to say this, I'm going to tap dance through the minefield. There was nothing perpetuating Gary's legacy.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I think the other piece of it that people always forget about is, until the stupid Big Bang episode, Gary Con was a more intimate gathering of people who were there to celebrate the life of Gary Gygax, which was pretty much the only thing that was doing that. The all the money raised for the Gygax Memorial Project we still have nothing to show for it.
Well, and that's a good point, Jim, because Gary Con started the same year as North Texas, and our numbers were comparable for several years until the big trilogy of 5E bringing people to the OSR, the Big Bang Theory, Stranger Things. It all kind of hit, and then kaboom! Now Gary Con is sitting here. That the whole town of Lake Geneva is shut down with gamers for a week in March or April.
Yep.
And because this all blew up right about that. And luckily, I'm glad it did, because that brought Gary's name back into the limelight. People understood who Gary Gygax was. I'm absolutely telling you the truth when I said people would ask me who Gary was. Who is Gary? I heard a lot about Gary Gygax. Who's Gary Gygax? Well, he wrote this game that we're playing. Well, no. I looked at the book. No, that's the 5th edition. Look, you got to look farther back, and it was a shame. It was just really a shame that his name had disappeared like that among the younger generation. Now, of course, there's a lot of people that bring his name up for reasons, to basically rip the man, which sucks too. It's a different way, but at least his name's out there. As Jerry Jones says about the Cowboys, you can love them, you can hate them, as long as you're talking about them. And that's,
I believe, part of that sentence you left out is, and as long as you keep buying Cowboys merchandise.
As long as you keep buying Michael Irvin jerseys, I'll be rich and rich, rich. So but so that's kind of, as long as people are talking about him, that's great. Just as long as people realize that he and Dave created this game, that's wonderful, and that's something that's only happened in the last few years. We went through, Jim and Eric and I, and a lot of the old schoolers, we went through a long period of walking in the darkness when from 2008 through probably 2020, when it was just kind of like who's Gary and what's so great about old D&D, and where'd this come? I don't understand where this came from. And I will also give John Peterson credit, because he did a lot of scholarly works on D&D. Playing at the World was one. The Game Master was I'm sorry, I always forget the name of it. Game Masters. No, what was the one that the very popular one that just came out a few years ago? That's the one that everybody ended up reading. The one that was a history of Gary getting fired from TSR.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, and so he, his a scholarly, and then a lot of books followed after that. Ben Riggs had a book. Dave Ewald had a book. A lot of other writers had a book, about the origins of D&D. So everything cut for 10 years. It was silence. Then it started trickling through, and then boom, there was this gigantic hit. And luckily, we are where we're here today. And look, as much as we like to rag on WotC and 5E and this and that, this is the best time ever for the OSR. It really is. I mean, the OSR, when it was created, when it was really coming about with Matt Finch and all those guys in the early days, 2009, 2010, that was a wonderful period. But I'm telling you right now, there is so many great OSR products out there now. It is a cornucopia of excitement and energy and creativity out there. And we had to walk through the darkness to get here. But I'm really happy where it is now. I just really want Troll Lord to succeed in this. I guess that's where my worrisome feeling is. I really want them to succeed. Don't you guys? I mean, I want this to be a huge hit, and I want this to make $500,000. I don't know, $1 million. I want this to do really well, because I want people to actually see this, and be able to purchase it. And look, if you're sitting there and you've got 10 copies of the old Castle Zaggig in your closet because you're going to be rich, I feel sad for you, because this is going to drive this. I'm sorry, I'm a collector. It will absolutely drive down the price. but it's better that this stuff gets out there and that
That's
everybody
right.
can read it instead of there is a really, really lousy PDF of this out there. I won't say where I got it from, but the usual places. Okay. And it's not a very good PDF, but if you really had to have it, this PDF's out there. But I would rather everybody be able to buy one and have their own copy and be able to read through it. Because this is the closest we're going to get, guys. This is the closest we're going to get to Gary's original work.
Yeah, and come on, I think a big chunk of this is we're all consumed by nostalgia. We're all consumed for the what we wanted and what was supposed to be, and instead, we're 45 years later, and we're still sitting at the table, and we've only ever gotten an appetizer, and we've never gotten the main course.
And look, in a perfect world, Gary would still be around, and we would have this wonderful 4-box set that he and Jeff wrote, and then Jeff would still be doing Hyperborea now, but Jeff would be much better known than even he is now because he would, he'd be the co-author of this, and we would have the complete plan, and it would have been great to have that.
But think about this, right? Instead of Greyhawk, instead of 2 or 3 boxes of Greyhawk from TSR, we got the Hollow Earth, we got Maztica, and we got the Horde. And I don't know about you, but I feel a little robbed. Now, that sounds, it's nothing against the 3 settings, but truthfully, yeah, what? Why? Yes.
Can I throw a personal theory out there, and you guys can beat me up or praise me?
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
anxious to
I may have told Eric this before. I don't know if I ever told Jim there. The worst thing that ever happened to TSR was Gary going to Hollywood because they lost their biggest creative force. Once again, in a perfect world, Gary would have never gone to Hollywood. We wouldn't have the D&D cartoon. Boo fucking who? It's crap. Sorry, kids. It is. You
just made all of Brazil angry.
It's crap. And look, Flint Dilley could have did that by himself, talking to Gary on the phone. He did not need to go rent King Vidor's mansion and have giant parties there, whatever. No, the best possible thing would have been to stay at Lake Geneva, work on this, come out with T2, T3, T4, come out with the Shadowlands with he and Steve Marsh, come out with the Barony of whatever that he and Rob Kuntz were going to do. I mean, that would have been the perfect world, and to come out with eventually Castle Greyhawk. Instead, for 2 years, he squandered his creative chops, except running back home to write Unearthed Arcana to save the freaking company because they were about to go under. So he had to write Unearthed Arcana, which to this day a lot of purists are like, Unearthed Arcana, which I don't mind it. I kind of like it actually, but a lot of people don't like it. But that's why it was written, to save the company, because the Blooms had pissed all the money away, and there was a lot of other things going on too.
Remind me to speak of the Blooms later. I have an interesting thing.
You have a great story about everybody, Jim. I've noticed that.
No. This is this week. It doesn't involve me. This is just something.
Okay. But no, if Gary staying in Lake Geneva would have been the best thing for the D&D and the hobby. And who knows? We may have never heard the name Lorraine Williams if that had happened. But going to Hollywood just kind of took the air out of the tire. And the Blooms didn't know what they were doing. Everybody that we've ever talked to that worked under them just had the same idea. They were just two clueless goofballs. And Gary he took his eye off the prize. And when he came back and tried to get the company going, it was stolen from him. So, So
no, let's not call it stolen, because that's not what it was. We have to be honest about these things, and all.
He was outmaneuvered.
You've got to read the book. I'll give the highlights, but essentially, Gary was making a percentage on everything with his name on it that sold.
Right.
Every single thing that came out with his name on it, he was getting a residual. And And the Blooms, like them, hate them, whatever. The Blooms confronted Gary about this and said, as a move towards profitability, we need you to stop this. Gary was like, I started this company. No. And there was back and forth. And I'm going to leave all the back and forth out of it. But essentially what it came down to was, hey, how about you take a smaller percentage and we're good? And Gary was like, well, no. And then the ambush at Sheridan Springs happens, which is the Blooms sell their combined shares, which put the majority in Lorraine Williams's hands, and Lorraine kicks out Gary. And that could have been avoided, right? This is the story of B1 versus B2. B1 was Mike Carr's amazing module, but Mike Carr was getting money for this. And that's the reason B2, written by Gary Gygax, replaced B1 so that Gary could get all the money from the included module in all the basic sets. Okay, sure, whatever. Now, I think this is a good time to sort of tap in. I got an email this week from a well-known person who deals in used and collectible items. Eric, I sent you the pictures. So interestingly, Kevin Bloom reached out to our wheeler dealer and said, I've got a couple of old TSR belt buckles I'd like to sell. They were my personal ones.
Hold on, Jim.
I sent them in Facebook Messenger. You should see them. I swear to God, I just sent them. Oh, wait, hold on. No? It helps if I hit send. Ha ha! So
crazy internet.
So Kevin reached out, said, "Hey, maybe you can sell these." So I'd like to put these up on the screen because if you've got some loose cash laying around, I can put you in touch with a person who will sell you these belt buckles. So let's start with the Lizard Man. The Lizard Man belt buckle. I'm sure that many of you have seen it. You may not be familiar, but that's fine. This is the TSR Lizard Man belt buckle. I don't know how many they made. They made a few. They didn't make that many. But this is Kevin Bloom's personal one. And if you'd like to buy that, the price is $6,000.
Yeah, so, Bill Meinhardt's got that in his back pocket. He should be able to.
$6,000. Let's go to the other one. The other one is the Wizard logo belt buckle with red enamel that were created for TSR executives, vice president above, and in theory, only about a dozen were made. Now, I know somebody who has one of the red ones. I have the blue one that looks like this. I have Duke Siegfrieds that Gary gave Dukes, but the red ones are rarer. And this one can be yours for only $10,000. So if you are interested in either of those, ping us and I'll connect you with the person.
I'm calling my bookie right now. I've got some bets I'm going to lay down.
Yes, you should absolutely call your bookie right now.
Yeah.
So you'd be set.
Dallas Cowboys to win the Super Bowl odds. Okay, yeah, that's
there you
outrageous. Go. Outrageous. If I win that one, I'll be able to afford it. Yeah.
So.
Put the Jets on me, will you?
Let's Cowboys Super Bowl. Oh my God, 1,000,000 to 1 odds. Here we go.
Let's go from selling belt buckles of Kevin Bloom's, and we'll move away from all the Bloom related things. But Eric, I believe you uncovered something that you wanted to share while we were talking.
Yes. So, folks, if you've been following what I do at the Tavern for as long as I've been doing it, before I was doing videos, before I was doing a podcast, I was doing a blog. I still do it. And I got to get to know Gail on a certain level when I was looking into the Gygax Memorial Fund. And I've been lax over the last couple of years because updating was slow. But with Paul Stoneberg on board at the fund, they were actually putting the recent filings up at the memorial site itself. But that stopped in 2021. And I decided as we were having this discussion, hey, ProPublica. I used to always use it. Let me go in there and stretch my fingers and see what I'm going to find. And I found something that I don't think anybody has been discussing. So let's bring it up. Oh, no, I don't want that. Oh, there we go. So, in 2021, this is the last one that you can find on the Memorial Fund site itself. There's a net income of $1,448. Basically, expenses, revenue balanced out, net assets 193 and change. That's the last one you could find there. 2022 net income, negative 170,000. Expenses 170,729. Net assets down to 23,000 and change. 150,000 of that apparently was toward the memorial. I don't know what the expenses were because they stopped updating the memorial website. But then the last one that's up is 2023 with expenses of 35,000, net income of almost negative 31,000, and basically negative assets, which is not a good thing to have if you're a nonprofit. You've got more liabilities. You see it down here. Liabilities are 21,000 versus total assets of just over 11,000 for net assets of just under just about 9,700. So yeah, I don't know if anybody else who's covered this. I don't know anybody else who digs into this, but we don't know. I can dig into the filings, but they don't really seem to be all that detailed. They never are. So, I mean, I'll probably do a video on it after the show, dig into it a little bit deeper. But and yeah, Fugly, it was never kept in an interest-bearing account. It never even made 1%. I have prior looked into that. But again, if you're running a nonprofit or a not-for-profit and you have liabilities, you've spent more money than you've taken in. That's not a good sign. I don't really have much to say beyond that because I wasn't expecting to find that. I was expecting to find what I found for the last 10 years, which is money just spinning and slowly draining away. But
so what was this money in for? What was the purpose of this money to begin with, to start out?
Well, at one point it was to make the Fonzarelli. I mean, no, the Guy Gax
the Fonzarelli
by the Fonz artist. But then it moved on to Gail was going to have a table with Gary at one end, and you could sit at the other side of the table and have your picture taken with Gary. That was the latest iteration that was supposedly happening, but that's not going to happen. I don't know.
So,
but literally shocked. So,
but Paul got something done. I mean, what did he get done last year? He got the table done, right? Or the
table? It wasn't the park. Wasn't it a bench in the park?
Yeah, that's not a bench. Okay, and they have plans to make the table, but they have the bench. The bench did get done.
They have the bench. And the bench was where Gary and his dog would sit to look at the water at the.
I thought the table was approved as well. I thought they were moving ahead with the table.
Yeah, I think it was, Jim, but I don't think it was been built yet. But I think it was approved.
The website has some news on it.
Yeah,
but frankly, at this point, I'm a believer that money donated. The worst part is, I'll step back here. I think the thing that really
Jim, I'll let you collect. I'll let you collect.
Let me get this out. Let me jump in now and
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think people need to really think about this. I don't think of Paul Stormberg as somebody who gets involved in something that is malfeasance or this is a big ugly mess.
Yeah.
And here's why I say that. You have a lot of people who wanted to memorialize somebody who was responsible for creating something they loved. And in the aftermath of Gary's death, the Gygax Memorial Fund with the idea of the Gary Gygax Memorial Fund with the idea of having a statue or something in Lake Geneva was a great idea. And people, there was a handful of products that you could buy from the website. So there was like Cheers Gary, the book that collected a bunch of his posts on Usenet. But most of it was just cash donations. People wrote checks and sent money. And then Wizards of the Coast, they did the terrible reprints. I'll be the first to rail about the quality of the reprints, but Wizards of the Coast did the reprints of the three first edition books, and they had a chunk of change that went to the Gygax Memorial, the Gary Gygax Memorial Foundation. And so all of this money was donated or was arranged to be sent to the fund for all of the right reasons. And I think, again, this sits squarely with the person who is sort of in charge of all of this. Now, I don't think we should get into it tonight, but Eric has done a phenomenal job of covering all of the long-term turmoil at the Gary Gygax Memorial.
For years. Yeah, for
years. Going on years and years and years. Mm-hmm. And I guess what hit me just now, it's been 17 years, and they're still no closer to all the things that were promised and all the, like I know grief is hard. Like grief is hard. And we're at the age that you start losing people.
Right.
And that's tough. And I can't imagine losing somebody that you were married to for the better part of 20 odd years, that you had a kid with. This is all difficult stuff. But come on, right? Like, if you go on the website, there's a picture of Paul with Gail from last year. You should bring the website up and let's show some of the pictures of all this stuff, right? And I'm really just, where's the beef? Where's the beef? You keep showing me this limp hamburger and we still don't have anything for it, right? Okay, it's got a park bench. That's great. I'm glad there's a park bench. Like, I think that's awesome. I think that's a great way to recognize it. And at least we have something. But the whole idea of the table and, first it was this gigantic statue and Lake Geneva was like, I'm good. And then it was the revised with the table and the statue of Gary so you could sit at the table and roll dice. People
Jim,
find a way.
It wasn't just the statue, Jim. It was the fact that it had to be in a certain spot of the park.
That was that was the aspect for years.
For years, and Gail would not budge on that, and would go to the city council and argue her case every year and insist on this spot. And it could have been up, it could have been done. She would not compromise on this, on where it had to be.
So let me. I want to talk to this because I got to get this the right way. All right. I know somebody who lost a brother to a terrible, terrible, terrible tragedy. And you talk about something that had a big effect on a family, like this is it. And so, whoa.
Sorry, hit the wrong button.
And so their brother's grave has one of these places where you can unscrew something and you can reverse it, and then there's an urn to put flowers in.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that people who came to pay respects did is that he loved Hot Wheels as a kid. And so every time the family would go to the grave where his friends had been there, what they had done is they had unscrewed the little thing, pulled it out, and dropped Hot Wheels in, and then screwed it back so that Russ would always have Hot Wheels.
Wow.
And so I say that because that leads me to my next point, which is I've heard conflicting stories that where Gary's grave is, he is not actually buried there. There is a grave in a cemetery in Lake Geneva that you can visit, but I've heard that he's not interred there because they don't want somebody to steal his body. You creepy lich bastards, you knock that stuff off. Necromancy, it's still a crime. But when I got there, one of the things that was so great about it was that people find a way, and people were leaving dice. They left dice on Gary's grave, and it's been that way forever. That's fabulous. That's fantastic. I'm very, very happy about that because that's the most organic, decent way that doesn't cost people real money. Not I'm going to make a donation and hopefully see something for it. No, you can actually go to this grave that's marked as the grave of Gary Gygax, and if you want to leave one of your old, nasty, chewed up polyhedrons, you can do that. Eric, why don't you go ahead and bring the other up that you've got queued up there?
Yep, hold on. Sorry. Let me bring myself back.
So this is the current as envisioned. It's not nearly enough backpacks. Everybody should have a backpack.
Hey, yeah, you're missing.
So this is the model, that there would be a statue of Gary at the table, and then you could sit at the table and you could game with Gary.
Be a great photo op, right? Great photo op for tourists.
Well, as long as they don't get the person to make the statue of Gary that made that horrible statue of Lucille Ball that was so terrible.
How about the Fonzarelli, the Fonza statue? That was pretty bad. And that's, by the way, that's who was on tap to do the statue, was the Fonzie guy.
Please tell me you're joking.
No, Eric?
No. He was the guy who did the Fonz statue that's in Milwaukee, was tapped to do, that was their choice as to who was going to do it. They went through, by the way, the statue went through a number of iterations. One that was it's sketched out by Jeff Easley. I think that wound up not going. You know what? This is much more subdued than the throne that Gary was going to initially be on. So,
okay, why don't you scroll up to the pictures, or why don't you scroll to the news? Yeah, go to the top there. So there's Gail. There's Gail and Paul. Gail is armed. Paul is smiling, and there's a very pleasant woman holding this other picture. So, what's the caption on that?
That is a Gygax Memorial donation application unanimously approved by Lake Geneva City Council, April 3rd, 2024. Which, just by the way, folks, to point out something that we just learned tonight, the fund was in negative 9,000 and change in 2023's tax filing. So. Yeah, that's the most recent photo, actually, April 3rd of last year.
By the way, this is the same city council that gave $10,000 for the Lake Geneva Museum because it was going to be a historic. They had no clue what it actually was or what it was going to be run by. So I don't know if I trust their judgment very much.
I mean, the Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum.
Yeah, Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum.
The Lake Geneva Museum is a legit museum.
Oh no, that's legit. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah,
the library exhibits.
In a moment of drunken stupor, you got that wrong. So
yes, we had to correct you.
Actually, no. Actually, I'm going to start drinking. Maybe I'll start getting stuff right tonight. I need to start drinking. Oh yeah, there we go. That might be my problem. I'm way too sober. Far too sober.
But there isn't a mural, the building that used to be TSR is a private company now, and they don't want people hanging out in the parking lot, rubbing the side of the building softly and moaning. Lake Geneva skirted away from everything to do with TSR for a long time until now they realize, holy crap, there's some money to be made.
Right.
It's a moneymaker.
And that's okay too. I'm fine with that. Like, that doesn't mean I want some weird dungeon themed Airbnb. Like, come on. But I don't know. I just see I'm excited about the Troll Lord Castle Zygig. Now I'm down because I look at the money that went to the memorial 17 years ago and come on, wasn't there a relative of Gail's that was somehow tied into it, Eric? I sort of halfway remember that.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So Gail's sister, who, as I understand, was designated the inheritor of the E. Gary Gygax Revocable Trust. So not Gail's offspring, but her sister Diane, if I remember the name right, was also, and she was the initially the vice president, and I think her husband was the treasurer or the accountant.
Yeah, and her husband's an attorney.
Okay, so everybody, after initially there were people from old TSR that were on the memorial board first year or two. I think Jim Ward was on the board initially. And then it was all, forgive me for saying this, nepotism. And now I don't think there's, let's see, actually, it should be on the website.
Well, Eric, if you remember correctly, Jim at one point said he didn't remember his name even being put on there. There was some names on there, people who did not even remember being put on there that were just kind of stuck on there. And they're like, hey, you're on the board. They're like, I am. I didn't apply for any board or ask to be on a board. So it was real shaky, weird how these people ended up on the list. And I think Jim Ward was one of those who had told Doug and I at the time he didn't even know how he ended up on the list, and it just was. And
Diane Carpenter, her sister, is currently a secretary treasurer. Alex Gygax right now is on the board as board vice president. Paul is board president and chief fiscal officer, and Gail is board chairman. That is on the website.
There's a way to do this, and not to toot our own horns very much, but North Texas was started by myself and Doug Ray, and now me and his son David and Gary run the convention, and we see the convention's a living memorial to what Doug wanted to do, and you can do it right. We haven't really changed what we do. We do the same thing. We try to put together an experience that will both relate to what went before, but also will be looking ahead. And I think we do a pretty good job of keeping it the way it was, but also incorporating some new ideas. But it's a living memorial to Doug, and I look at Gary Con is very much the same as a living memorial to Gary. And for years, because there was no memorial, people would say that the Gary Con is the memorial to Gary, which it was, because that was there was no memorial to him, but there was oh dear, I can't even concentrate now. Look at this.
Sorry. Your name level with a donation of $250 or more, but at high level with a donation of $25,000 or more. Okay. You can be a Dragon Lord of Gygax and get put on their scroll of and a PDF of your official scroll of honor with your name and title. And PDF map and keys of the complete Greystone Castle. How can you have a mini level mega dungeon? I don't know. But
I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'd be fucking embarrassed to be part of this stuff. I absolutely would be embarrassed. This is embarrassing. I'm sorry.
Paragon of Gygax, 50,000. You'll be one of the first people invited to play at the completed table.
Whatever.
Paladin of Gygax.
All right. Enough.
This is ridiculous.
Enough.
I think Jim and I are about ready to burn down the barn here.
Just Just take it off the screen.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's just ludicrous.
All right.
Make it
So-
stop. I'm thinking of George
here.
Scott right now.
I'm done. I don't even want to talk about it anymore because I just don't.
Oh,
So
Ty, you're late, man. You missed it all.
all
Holy
right.
crap.
All right.
You would have loved it.
By the way,
on.
I'm sorry. I have to announce something. North Texas, we'll have our Paladin of North Texas level open. It's for only 100K. You will have the front. You will be able to sit on stage for the midnight auction.
You couldn't pay me for that.
Eric will sit in your lap, and Jim will croon songs to you. He will croon old show tunes.
Moving on.
Moving on.
For only 100K. It's a bargain. Damn it! It's a bargain.
Going forward, not looking backwards. Going forward, not looking backwards. All right. Let me just throw something else out. So we've reached the hour plus mark, and this is a good time to throw this out. We talk about him from time to time, usually not on the show, but off the show. But I'm just going to throw this out here. Let's have a palate cleanser. Let's have a palate cleanser. You should do something nice for somebody. If the last 25 minutes of this show have given you an unbearable case of heartburn and anguish and frustration and murderous rage, wash that away and let's do something nice for somebody. So here's what I'm going to suggest. You may do as you will. I was very lucky to get to work around Frank Mincer and Tim Kask at the Gen Con auction for years before they retired. Same too at Gary Con and other places. Eric and Mike have both been around them a long time as well. But like a lot of the old crew, they're the crew that's now getting a bit old. And so here's what I would say. Take the time this next week. I don't care. It doesn't have to be tonight. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. But do yourself a solid. Do yourself some pay it forward. And send a nice note to Frank, to Tim, to Jeff Easley, any of the old guard. Send them all just a nice note and tell them that they made a difference in your life. Frank has been struggling. Tim's getting older. Jeff, all the old crew from TSR that you love and you remember, they're not getting younger. They're getting older. But really and truly, sit down. Don't tell them I told you to write. Jesus, they'll send dogs after you.
Teacher told me.
Jim made me do this.
But send them a nice note. Like send something nice to Frank. Frank struggled, but Frank has been to Italy and back and survived, and he went to Page, and that's great. But Frank could use a nice note. Tim is got one of the funniest podcasts on YouTube, and genuinely, I love hearing him rant from the cellar.
Yes.
But all of these folks are out there. We lost Jim Ward. I've said before, I had a copy of Metamorphosis Alpha that I was going to bring to Gary Con to have him sign, only to have him die beforehand. Kind of sucks. But my point to this is not, and again, Jesus Christ, don't tell him I sent you. But do something nice, right? The Gygax Memorial, in whatever limbo-like state that it is, isn't going to give you a chance to say goodbye to Gary on your terms. But you can say something nice to all these other people who did have such a difference in your life, right? We talk about Alan Hammock all the time. We talk about him on the show. We talk about him off the show. And I was lucky enough to find something Alan Hammock related that I'm going to bring to North Texas this year. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And in fact, I actually talked to Alan Hammock about the object last week after I shared the picture with Mike and Eric. And he was howling. He was laughing, and he thought it was good fun, and we had a great time. Alan Hammock is easily one of the nicest people in the entire industry. It is not hard to find Alan Hammock on Facebook and send him a note that says, I know you were with TSR for this brief period of time, but you made a real difference, and I think you're amazing. Mike Carr is not hard to get a hold of. Jesus, the man literally crawls around on tables for Fight in the Skies, and I don't want to know how old he is, and I don't care, because the day that Mike Carr dies, the Fight in the Skies Society is going to have a hole in it that just is going to be immense. So take the time right now.
You know who would really appreciate it, and I can tell you this for a fact, is Darlene, and who's a wonderful lady. And look, a lot of these people, they are not jaded at the people come up saying.
I mean, there are a couple, but most of them are.
most of them are very, very appreciative. And Darlene is one of those people who is just absolutely will radiate happiness if you tell her that you just loved her stuff and loved her unicorn pictures, and could you sign this for me? And there's a lot like that out there. But yeah, there, as a whole, our hobby is, I'm a big comic book guy, as many people know it, and I used to do a lot of comic shows. I did one a month for years and years and years. And most of the people I ran into were great. I mean, I get Walt Simonson, Frank Miller, John Byrne. I mean, these are nice guys. Then there was the guys who are like, you want me to sign this?
I'll need 5 $1 bills. Yes.
Chris Claremont. Okay.
So,
I've already signed 100 of these today, but here you go.
Somebody mentioned Merle. We got to talk about Merle Rasmussen. He's hysterical. Like, hands down, like, you see him show up at a convention, and his poor, long-suffering wife has been enduring gaming conventions for longer than most of us have been alive. And the two of them show up. He always wears the tux. He is the administrator.
Yep.
I still think the top secret combat rules suck. I love you, Merle, but they do. And that's okay. But really and truly, like, take our little downer moment of the Gygax Memorial Fund and roll that into something good, which is reach out to all these people. Send them a note, because the reply you get may be something that you can look back on and go, there was that time I told Frank Mincer that the Temple of Elemental Evil was the most fun I ever had in a super module. And Frank replied, I'm really glad of that. Thanks a lot. You won't get the cigarette smell from, talking to Frank one-to-one at a convention, but Frank doesn't go to that many conventions anymore.
No.
But you will have that, and you can treasure that. I've told it before, I only met Gary and talked to Gary one time. And strangely enough, I only talked to Arneson one time, and I'm still trying to forget that. But these people were the creators of so much of what you've loved for the last almost 50 years. The least you can do is just reach out to them, say nice things, and pay it forward, because that's the best thing you can do. If the Gygax Memorial Fund has taught us anything, it is that money doesn't necessarily guarantee what you're hoping for as far as a way to remember the people that mattered or made a difference in your life. But yeah, the one-to-ones, right? Like, I don't talk to Alan Hammock every week. I probably could, but I try not to be that guy.
Why would you want to, really? I mean, the guy,
I mean, he's a busy man. He's got a lot of things going on.
He really does.
But
he's got to go swim in the hot tubs of old Deep Space Nine actresses.
I mean,
let him tell you that
there
story.
are rumored to be pictures of him with Barbara Bain and what's her name, Maya, in a hot tub. I've never seen them, but I'll take them.
Ask him about the hot tub of the Babylon 5 actress, and he'll tell you the story.
Oh, God.
And yeah, it's true. It happened.
It's exhausting trying to keep track of the many, many, many adventures of Alan. Right? I feel like that would be like the NC-17 look at TSR, right?
Imagine that, the seedy look on Alan's face as he slipped into that hot tub with the beautiful redhead, which I can't remember her name from.
Claudine
not. No, I know. Are you talking Space 1999?
No, I'm talking Babylon 5.
Oh, Babylon 5, the redhead? Oh,
yeah,
is that
the redhead telepath?
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but once the telepaths began to sing, I turned the show off. I was done. I was like, you've jumped the shark. We're over. Ask me about my favorite episode of Firefly. Go ahead, ask me.
What's your favorite episode of Firefly?
None of them, because the show was awful and it deserved to be canceled.
Patricia Tallman. Ask about Patricia Tallman's hot tub. Now his wife was there too.
No, I'm not.
So it got even seedier.
Find out more about Alan Hammock than anybody needed to know.
Yeah.
Right?
How seedy was it?
It got seedy. No, I'm just kidding. No. Oh. But no, great guy. No, Alan, look, and there's lots of guys like this, and we say this a bunch. You don't know what's going to happen or what's going to, you just don't know. Just tell them when you see them, you appreciate them. And I try to do that. I try to do that every time I see them. And I hope that they realize that by inviting them to the convention, and Gary and I do appreciate them and do, and look, we love all our guests and we like it when they come, and we love it when they come and they run games. We like it even better when they come run games and say they love our convention. I mean, it's all love. It's a love fest.
It's a love fest. It's a gigantic pile of Mike and Gary and love.
But I can tell you the number of people I've talked to the last few years that said, man, I knew you guys had Jim Ward there, but I never made it when Jim Ward was there. And what are you going to do? Steve Perrin was a great guest. Oh my gosh. And he had some of the best stories. Really. He really did. And, it really kills me because he was raring to go in 2020 and we had to cancel the con. We told him not to come for his own health. And he passed away before the next year. And he loved coming to our convention and he had the great stories. And now we get people all the time like, oh man, I saw you guys had Steve Perrin here, man. I wish, you got to get these guys now. They're not going to be around forever. And a lot of them aren't going to travel very much. I'm seeing that. We're seeing that already with some of the guys, especially the older guys in Lake Geneva. They don't go out of Lake Geneva anymore. They don't really travel. A lot of these guys aren't traveling. Steve Winter told me he's not going to travel as much. Alan's not going to travel as much.
Well, and also too, it's the health concerns, right? Like
absolutely.
I somehow dodged the bullet and didn't get COVID at GaryCon, but guess what? Gen Con, and I got to spend a week in the basement. Hooray! And it wasn't the good kind of COVID where like a day later you're like, "Ooh, I'm awesome."
The good kind? Oh wow, I missed that one.
Well, so did I. It did suck.
I must find out more about this good COVID. I didn't get it. I still can't taste or smell. It's been 4 years, and I can, but it's getting better.
I mean, we can smell you, Mike. We can smell you.
It's getting better, but it's still. I
You're
still
a
have
little right, Mike.
I smell weird metal smells, and I taste. So I'm lucky that I can taste and smell it all. Thank God, but still.
Yeah, take the time and write them a note. Like really and truly, if you're watching this show and you've gotten to this point and you've been on our little epic journey tonight, like take the time to write people like Alan and Frank and Tim and everybody else. Write them a little note and just say something nice to them, and you'll feel good about yourself, right? Like this is the end of the movie Scrooged, where Bill Murray storms the set of the live holiday New Year's or the live Christmas Eve showing of the TV show and is like, you'll do this, you'll feel better, and you will, right? I like Ty trying to argue against the tide of there's no good, like Ty, there is no good Firefly episode. That's why it got canceled. Right?
Don't let Ty, he's having issues tonight because he's wrong. He's wrong. So
there is no good episode of Firefly. If there was, they'd have been renewed. It's like Dollhouse.
No, that's not why it was canceled. It was canceled because they showed it out of order at a weird time, and they would skip weeks, and then they go, "Oh, this thing sucked. It's no good." It was a good show. I'm sorry. Sorry, Jim.
I'm sorry. Wait. I'm sorry. What part of the verse is it a good show in? Because I have yet. Is that like an alternate reality? I'm sorry. As soon as you have to shorten the word universe down to the verse, I'll
give you this. I when it came out, I loved Buffy, Joss Whedon's, start in this series. I recently rewatched some of the episodes. It's pretty bad. It's really, really bad. And I had forgotten how bad the acting is in that show. It is horrific. It is horrific. But this writing is still it has some moments when it's clicking. The dialogue's clicking. But yeah, the acting's just terrible. Now,
it's
trope-tastic. I haven't watched Firefly in a while. Maybe if I watch it now, I'd be like, oh, yeah. But I've
seen better things on the Canadian Space Channel. Even Lex, the horrific Canadian German, like weird science fiction show Lex was better.
I'm going to shock you here, and you may unfriend me. But in light of your confession about not liking Firefly, I'm going to tell you a show that I watched all the seasons of, and I would not watch it again under any circumstances. And it's a beloved show, and that show is Babylon 5.
Oh, it's hard to rewatch. It's terribly hard to rewatch.
Hard. The first season is bad. Bad. Gets better 2, 3, and 4. Gets better.
So I actually think the arc is season 1 is mediocre, trope-tastic, and then it had just enough momentum to get people interested because there was clearly an envisioned 5-year arc that year 2 is when things started to coalesce.
Started getting better.
Got a lot better. Lurker's Guide to Babylon 5 started.
Yep.
And then season 3, we're hitting all the high points. Everything's clicking. Everything's coming together.
By far, yes.
And we're going into 4 feeling pretty good. And holy crap, they're pulling the rug out from under us. So we got to wrap it up in case we don't get season 5. So they hurry up and they cram 2 seasons worth of content into season 4. And you're just like, whoa, man, I can dodge a wrench. Can I dodge a ball? And then we get to season 5 and it craters. And I can tell you that the exact moment it jumps the shark is when telepaths begin singing. And that's it. There's no coming back from the telepaths singing. And this is why, like, I have had this debate with a friend of mine. Like a lot of people, I bought the DVD sets as they came out. Hooray. Try to watch it. And if you didn't know it, Max, the Max channel or the Max whatever you want to call it, streaming service, has Babylon 5 in 4K. They went back, they cleaned it all up, they used it looks amazing, but it's still just dreadful. And it doesn't hold up, and it looks like
it's television sci-fi. Yeah. It's what it is. And so when it's good, it's watchable, and then when you get a bad episode it's just that's bad.
Look, we all know the key to watching Star Trek: The Next Generation. If you turn on the show and Riker doesn't have a beard, you turn it off. Right? That's it. If it has beardless Riker, you walk away because that first season is a hot mess. And Gary, just so you know, the science fiction cable channel in Canada is called Space. I didn't make that up. It's called Space. And so if you don't know about it, what you should also look up is you should look up Lex, Lexx. It was a joint science fiction show written by some doped out of their mind Canadians, along with some doped out of their mind Germans. It has Barry Bostwick in I think the first season, or the first couple of episodes. And it is the strangest blend of nudity, bugs, immortals.
I like all these things. Hold on.
But it's more original than any episode of Firefly, which is just Gunsmoke in science fiction.
But I like Gunsmoke, and I like
Gunsmoke too. But like, quit crossing the streams.
Now, what was the sci-fi show that also I was highly recommended to me, but it had Muppets in it, and
Farscape.
I powered through season 1, and I said, I can't do this anymore.
Farscape.
Oh, God, no.
Jesus Christ, I can't do this anymore.
That one's very slingy.
Wait a minute. But the only thing that even got me to watch an episode of that show is that whatever the blue female alien was, she was the Amazon in the Road Warrior. She was the Amazon sort of, that ends up getting shot on the back of the tanker truck.
Yeah, that made the Babylon 5 special effects look like,
Yes.
the latest episode of, Star Wars. I mean, it was bad.
And to be fair,
Well, it's
if you watched Lex on the Sci-Fi Channel, you didn't get to see the real version of Lex that aired in Canada and Germany, which was like we had a different nude blonde every season. And so you should probably go onto Amazon to watch it, because you don't remember what the rest of us were like. What the hell am I watching? Because it was truly just.
Okay, now I gotta watch it though. Dang it, I gotta at least check it out.
And then, oh god, the awful cartoon Tripping the Rift. There's an unrated version of Tripping the Rift that if you haven't seen the short, go forth and delve the internet. But Tripping the Rift, which was briefly a animated show on, I think, Space, the German equivalent, and then one of the, not Cartoon Network, but somebody picked it up in the U.S. and it aired late at night. But again, there were episodes that never aired in the U.S. They're equally abysmal.
I've got a pretty bad science fiction show. It's called The Acolyte, and I think it was supposed to be. No, I'm just kidding. No, The Acolyte's horrific. Horrific. Yes, Star Wars started here and went here. They kind of went here, then it went kaboom.
All right. See, I'm only watching 2 series right now on streaming of any regularity. Rogue Heroes, that's the British Special Air Service. It's a quasi-historical, quasi-fictionalized retelling of their formation and them during World War II. Very entertaining. Rach and I are both loving it, and on recommendation of my police forums, we decided to watch Slow Horses on Apple TV.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, my God.
It's amazing.
First episode of season 1, Rach and I are like, oh, my God, I really feel like I don't know if I want to go on to episode 2. Then episode 2, we're like, holy...
everything.
Episode 3, did we wait? Holy crap. Get to episode 1. It sets everything up. It's slow, but it sets it up.
But what you have to know is Slow Horses started where the author got his first book published, and then he got dropped by his publisher. And so there was an executive, I think an executive of Waterstones, who found the book used and bought it and read it and showed it to a publishing friend of his and is like, why is this guy not in print?
Oh, dear.
And they picked him up for a second book. They got the rights. They reprinted the first book. They got a second book out of him. And now it's just this enormous explosion. It's just spectacular.
There's like 4 or 5. He wrote a whole bunch of books, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. They're all really, really good.
Yeah.
I'll
check that out. I've had that recommended. I'll have to check that.
First, we're going to start second season tonight. We just watched the first season and
fabulous.
Listen, most shows you can go, I can see where this is going.
You do not. I
think that we're all, there is a scene where we both went, what the fuck did I thought that he, oh my God.
Yeah.
So if you can do that to jaded 57-year-old me who's seen everything and goes, I know what's happening in the next scene. I could already see it.
No,
you're not going to see it
you
here.
Do not.
Okay,
do not.
I'm here.
And so let's talk about that ties in really well with that. We were too young. I remember watching it but not getting it. But really and truly, in the late 70s, Tinker Tailor Soldier
Spy stuff, yeah,
and Smiley's People were the 2 books that just swept through everything. That's why Alec Guinness was Smiley in the TV adaptation. It's just great stuff. And if you've watched Smiley, if you've watched the old shows, if you watched the new Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy movie, if you've read the books, Jesus, read Slow Horses. And if you're like, okay, what's this about? I'm not interested in racehorses. No. So this is about what happens at MI5 when you have agents that for whatever reason, they are not performing to expectations, or they've embarrassed MI5, or they've just screwed up somehow. And what they've done is they've sent them to a place that's on a street, and its nickname is Slow House. And they are the slow horses. These are the people they can't just fire, but we're just going to put them here until they finally just quit.
Yep.
And it's about the people. Like, there were people who were the grade A number one out of the gate superstars who fudged up and ended up getting stuck somewhere. And then you have people that they made mistakes, blah, blah, blah. Great stuff. Now, I'm sorry, there's a fight in the comments. Let's just begin. Some people believe that Aaron Gray was the reason you watched Buck Rogers in the 25th century.
Really the only reason.
I'm sorry, but there was a panoply of amazing guest stars. But really and truly, it was what's her name? Ardala. Princess Ardala. Pamela Hensley.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
I've seen Aaron Gray, and I saw a lot of Aaron Gray on the Network Stars competition show where she was in a dunk tank. Get your Google foo. But Hensley was, Hensley was the one. You know, you might get a date or two out of Aaron Gray. You were only going to get one date out of Pamela Hensley, but you better hold on to your hat because you were in danger. You were in danger, mortal danger.
Danger, Will Robinson.
Yeah, Marky Post was on there. The playmate that got killed, Dorothy Stratton, was on an episode of Buck Rogers. And then let's not talk about season 2 of Buck Rogers because it jumped the shark at the giant robot at the start of episode 1, and then you're just like, I'm done. Right?
How did it jump the shark so quickly? Darn it!
It did. And then you gave us the weird hawk guy, and you're like, his mate is dead.
But then you just ended up watching it with the sound off, like I did, right? Everybody did it.
But let's not forget that there is a horror of horrors that no one can survive the sanity roll of.
Oh no.
Which is the theme music for Buck Rogers in the 25th century has lyrics. And when they released the pilot as a movie, as a drive-in movie to test and see if it was going to work, they let the guy write the song sing the lyrics. And so the movie version of that, over the credits at the end of it, has the music with the lyrics.
Oh,
and
dear.
You can't forget it. It's awful.
Oh, well.
Now, Foogly brought up Quark. I remember Quark, and I remember the Doublemint twins were on it. I can't remember their names. It was Richard Benjamin, Ficus, the guy who died shortly after he played Ficus. The two Doublemint twins.
You had me a Doublemint twins. You just go past that, and we're okay. We're good.
Shenanigans. Yes. But let's see if I can find the horrible Buck Rogers music so you can share that.
Speaking of horrible music or horrible anything, Eric, how is your quest to read the new Kick-Ass Warhammer book going? I'm sorry, BattleTech.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking about Warhammer book. BattleTech. Listen, we still need a few likes on the video from the other day. So if you see a video with a romance titled BattleTech fiction book. We're talking. There's talk about doing live reads at North Texas.
Is this the one called Hungry Like the Wolf?
Hungry Like the Wolf.
Oh yeah.
What?
Oh.
Well, you didn't.
What?
What? You didn't know?
Tell me of this abomination.
Hold on. I gotta find the.
Oh no.
Yes, BattleTech has moved into romance fiction. And these wolves are hungry.
Okay, we can't say anything bad about the television series because A, Jane Badler, smoking hot. B, you decided to give me the blonde English woman I can't remember. And C, sweet bejesus, you threw in Sybil Danning? This is a trifecta I cannot possibly find argument with.
Here you go.
What is this garbage?
Oh, yeah.
There you go. It's real. This was on the BattleTech feed posted by Catalyst Game Labs.
Oh, boy.
This is a legit book. You can buy it on Amazon. No, folks, I don't have the link on me right now. Apologize. I know you're all dying to go
Or
out.
everybody's clicking there, and then they're like, "Oh, do I want this to show up in my just bought items? Oh, I better cancel." Yeah, I can't wait for Eric to have to read certain passages out of here. Perhaps skipping over.
I am willing. I am if we get enough comments on the original video.
No,
because a couple mechs get lonely. They're out there in a
I will do a live reading on this channel, but not only that, I will do a live reading in the BattleTech game room.
I will do a live reading, and I will emphasize all the parts that need to be emphasized.
I think BattleTech on Friday night at North Texas, it would really be enhanced by Eric doing and Jim doing live readings.
No, wait. When your mech dies, you have to read.
Oh.
He slowly drew out his.
Now Gary is not saying no. Gary's not saying no.
He slowly drew out his PPC with its smoldering tip. As he put the crosshairs, he discovered her longing glances from the cockpit, and he knew that not only had he found his foe, he had found his true love.
He realized he could only reach for the member with his mouth.
Now, Sybil Danning was not. Oh, yeah, Sybil Danning was a Battle Beyond the Stars. But if you did not see the Battle of the Network Stars, Aaron Gray was in that. And
what a staple of my youth! Oh, that was great because you got to see him live, and you got to see who was really hot because they weren't always wearing makeup.
Yes,
and Aaron Gray looks pretty good without makeup on.
So, did you ever see the episode of the Antique Show or the Appraisal Show where she showed up with one of the production models of a starfighter that the props guys had given her when the show got canceled?
Oh my goodness, no.
And so they sort of screwed her over on the show because they said essentially, well, we don't know that this was a production model. Okay. It was. And she was unbelievably nice on the show. Like the footage of her, she was just as gracious and decent as it could possibly be. Oh, here we go. I knew then that he was ready for my AC-20. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is going to be easy. I can do all that. Right? Like, this is just...
We may be able to write a better book than was actually written.
As my heat sinks failed me in my...
Oh, man, there's no audible version.
I just, there has to be a scene where there's mechs, and it turns out the mechs are exactly compatible. And so they don't even have to get out of their mech.
I never knew love until I found my urban mech. Hey, you walking trash can, get over here.
I wasn't sure if it was a man or a woman inside the mech, but at that point,
I've got your warhammer right here, buddy.
I didn't care. All it cared was fulfillment.
But don't look at me because I'm unseen. Oh, even better. And then it could be something like, let's see. I'll show you who the battle master is.
Is there a description of the book, Eric?
I'm trying to find it right now.
Oh, yeah, we got to find a description of the book because
Yeah, bring it up.
I think we're writing a better book than they may have written already.
Now she apparently is the spouse of a BattleTech author. I did find that.
Well, Christina York. Oh, here we go. Oh my God! Ready? Here we go. Yes.
The way to an Ilkhan's heart.
You want to read? I'm going to read this, Eric.
All right, go ahead and read it because I'm getting everything else.
In the aftermath of the bloody, brutal campaign for Terra, Alaric Ward's clan wolf is victorious, but he has paid a fearsome price. Their 2 men nearly crushed. The clan must rebuild quickly, for there are more adversaries outside the fortress wall. Alaric, however, is resolute in his ability to not only restore the wolves to their former glory, but to protect humankind's homeworld from all potential enemies. Sounds okay so far, right? However, there's much more that needs rebuilding, including the ravaged planet of Terra itself. And leading the charge is Dr. Darvinda Elstone, head of one of the largest remaining non-governmental organizations tasked with helping save the exhausted.
Thank God for the NGO.
Okay, last paragraph gets into it. When they finally meet, sparks do fly, but of a kind neither one expected. As the peacemaker and warrior work together, both try to deny the growing attraction between them. But when a new enemy arises, they must join forces to stop a deadly threat that endangers everything they've built together, including their clandestine love affair.
Jesus Christ! All the clan players were insufferable anyway. This is just going to make it worse. Now we'll have the two of them. Like, this is going to force clan. I feel sorry for the clan players' wives who are now going to have to go through the elaborate bidding ritual for when they go to bed. Oh, Jesus Christ! This is it. This is when BattleTech jumped the shark.
Honey, don't you love me?
Words, this is where BattleTech's popularity starts to nosedive again.
Honey, if you love me, you dress up like Dr. Alandra Elstone and pretend my mech is your mech.
I bid 5 stars for the favor I desire.
Oh God!
Oh God!
Well, at least it's only $4.99 in Kindle.
Okay,
So.
oh, there you go.
But you know what I was hoping for? I was hoping that there was going to be an Audible version.
I can add to cart, but you know what? I got $5.
You know what the problem is you add that to the cart, and no amount of penicillin is going to make it go away.
And not only that, I get on a mailing list, don't I? Oh, I don't even want to know what the mailing list is.
You just get more books like this book.
Oh.
But listen, for those that are curious, I am putting the Amazon link in the chat.
Nobody is hungry like the wolf curious.
You never know.
There's a lot of listeners right now that are looking over their shoulder and they're clicking buy. And they're saying, send this to my P.O. box.
I'm a completist and I have to have every one. I feel sorry for Gary's wife, right? Because he's going to be like, so I was reading Hungry Like the Wolf. She's like, so help me God. If you tell me that you're going to hit it like the Shalom fighter hit the Ilkon's jump ship, we're divorced. But she was Rosselhaig, the leader of Rosselhaig's daughter. Nobody knew it was her. Her name was Tira Miraboard. And you can't remember our anniversary, and you can remember her name. We're getting a divorce.
Oh my God! I don't even have to buy it. I can get a sample.
Well,
oh my God!
The sample's not going to have any of the juicy stuff. They're not going to do that.
It's only the first part of the book, right?
Usually they're going to make you work for it now.
I can get like chapter 1.
Lisa, run now!
Jesus.
You know, I mean, I think it's time for us to do. We join
Sundays
only for a short while.
I like to detail my mech.
Oh God.
How do you detail it, Sir Wolf? I detail it by hand.
We've traversed a long and strange trail tonight, and unfortunately, we've now wound up at Alric's Treasure Trail. And
it's got 5 stars. Of course, it does.
I'm so tired.
Of course, it has 5 stars.
It has 5 stars. It has 5 stars, right? I feel like this is Picard when he says there are however many lights, right? Like, I only see 1 star.
There are 4 stars, 5 stars.
5 stars. Ulrich.
Oh God.
Yeah, I think this will be BattleTech for this coming year.
So definitely, go to the Eric's video on this. Put a comment on it.
You got a comment.
I'm never gonna like this.
Get a comment.
And when you don't need to like the video.
Stop.
Yeah.
We may have
I actually own a nice, really nice, like minty fresh copy of the terrible Adrith Mahar BattleTech book. And it might arguably, as bad as it is, it might arguably be better than this piece of shit over here in the corner.
So I've never read that book, the one you're talking about, Jim, but I've sold many copies over the years because apparently it was never reprinted. It was never reprinted, right?
Never reprinted.
Why was it never reprinted, Jim?
Because it's that abominably awful.
It's that bad?
It's that bad.
That's why it's so rare and it's worth so much on eBay. It makes sense now.
So if you don't know, Adrith Mahar, so I've been on record as saying I'm not the biggest fan of Jim Holloway.
The Sword and the Dagger. That's it. The Sword and the Dagger.
I don't like Jim Holloway's art style, and that's okay. But I have a tremendous amount of respect for Jim Holloway because he was clearly the guy that if you said we need X by this deadline, he delivered. Mm-hmm. And that's great, right? And there are a lot of people in this world that love them some Jim Holloway artwork, and I'm glad, but I was never one of them. But Adrith Mahar, she and her husband owned a bookstore in Yuma, Arizona. And she got in with some publishers where if you needed a book and you had to have a book in print, she could probably knock this out. And so, for example, everybody here knows that I love me some H. Beam Piper. I'm a huge fan of H. Beam Piper. There was a period of time where John Dixon Carr had not found the third Fuzzy book. The first two that Ace printed, when Piper submitted his third book, Ace rejected it and said it was too derivative of the first two. And the manuscript was lost for a long time. So they got two authors to come in and write sequels. They got William Tuning to write Fuzzy Bones, which was an amazing sequel. And then they got Michael Whalen to do a painting, and they had a book written to spec for the painting. Adrith Mahar was the woman who wrote the book.
Oh no.
And it is as terrible for Fuzzies and H.P. Piper as her BattleTech book was for FASA, and it was awful.
So this book is so rare, as you see by the link. Copies typically sell in the $100 range for this paperback because it is that rare that it was never reprinted, and apparently for good reason, as Jim says. So,
oh my God, it's abysmal. Like, so the only reason you want a copy is you're that much of a completist that you have to have House of the Wolf and Sword and Dagger, and they should go together. Awful.
I've sold many copies over the years, and I always wonder why it was worth so much. And there's our answer right there.
It's terrible. I think the print run. I think the print run was like 2,000 copies or 3,000 copies. It was like it was the minimum that they could get printed. It was the bare minimum of what they could get printed, and then they lucked into Mike Stackpole. And Mike Stackpole was like, we need a vision and we need to do a trilogy. And then we have another trilogy and so on and so forth. And they tied it into the world. They tied it. But Sword and Dagger just is standalone. It's just bizarre. It's awful. It's terrible. It's terrible. And really and truly, like, how did we wind up here? I don't even know.
The way we always do. We started.
So here. I'm gonna round this out. If we're gonna talk about TV shows, old sci-fi TV shows, the one that I always remember is Fantastic Journey, the one with the woman who had a cat from Atlantis, and Jared, what's his name that was on it? It was about the people that get lost in the Bermuda Triangle. I think it's Fantastic Journey.
I think you're right. I've seen the pictures now. Yeah,
Fantastic Journey.
That's boy, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so that's a good one.
1977.
And we've also talked before about Man from Atlantis, the Patrick Duffy vehicle before he got onto Dallas. And then what else? What are some other good ones? What was the one in the 80s? What was the mid 80s one where they were going from zone to zone to zone to zone? That I sort of remember.
I don't think any of these. I don't think.
Roddy McDowell.
There just wasn't a lot. There just wasn't a lot of good sci-fi back.
No, but NBC was always NBC was the network that had Star Trek and was always willing to try putting something on the schedule because they just wanted to have another Star Trek. Man from Atlantis was like.
And the problem is, unfortunately, fans of sci-fi and fantasy fans are like this too. We're so starved for anything in the 70s and 80s that we would watch really bad, but we'd watch Manimal just because it was a weird sci-fi show, and that was all we had was
Manimal. Before Quantum Leap. I mean, there was some really bad shit. Back when they put Captain America on a motorbike. Okay, this is when they would try anything.
Back when Marvel did not care about its superheroes, would sell them for a dime auction on the courthouse steps. Who wants Fantastic Four? $200 sold to Roger Corman because we don't care about our characters. Yes, that was the day when they did not see any money. They didn't understand what money was. This character Spider-Man will never be worth any money. This is never be worth anything. I just
sent you another picture. This was the main reason that I enjoyed Fantastic Voyage so greatly as a child. I was 9 years old, and I have no idea why, but her name was. I'll let you put the picture up.
Okay, here we go.
Her name was Katie Saylor, and I'm fairly certain that she's the reason that it hit me like a ton of bricks. That show was amazing, absolutely amazing. Mostly because Katie Saylor was in it. So,
there's her costume. Yeah, okay. I'll give you props on this one.
Oh well. It was the 70s.
It was a lot of nookie girls in the 70s out there. God. I know.
Katie Saylor.
A lot of 70s nookie girls. Oh. And the weird thing is, so I mean,
She
was.
did
If
not
you don't
do.
know her for that, you know her for the great movie called Supervan that came out in 1977. Yeah, she didn't do a whole lot. Oh my!
Yeah, I only
Which is
watched the
shocking.
original V for the costumes. That was it. But what I wanted to see the lizard ladies.
So V, that was a rare kind of a hit in the 80s in terms of it actually had decent special effects, not great, but it had a compelling storyline. And I remember in the summer of '84, I went to England that summer with a big giant school group, college group, and they were showing V over there. And I can tell you right now, England, the British Empire was fascinated by V. They loved V. So they showed every episode like night after they condensed them all into one giant movie that they played like 3 nights in England. And I will guarantee you, to say everything was closed because they were watching V.
Wow.
And we were like, wow, that's because they loved American sci-fi. I remember Star Trek was huge in England, huge. And Star Trek did not come to England to the 70s. It was after it had already been canceled in the United States, they started getting it in England. We had a visitor from England that came over in the 70s, and his family was totally hooked on Star Trek. They were like, oh my gosh, how did you guys love Star Trek and Spock and this and that? We're like, that show that was canceled like 5 years ago. but yeah, I remember V took the nation by storm in 1984 in England because everywhere we went, they were talking V, and we're just like, oh, lizard people, yeah, But it was that was my remembrance of V, and the hot chick that was the alien chick, of course, hot alien.
It's funny when you look at all the things that they threw at the wall, like Space 1999. We talked about Buck Rogers tonight. Battlestar Galactica, where it started off so promising, and then Galactica 1980, and you just
you know why Galactica 1980 happened though, right, Jim? They had no money, so they had to move to Earth so they could use Earth sets because they totally ran out of money by then, and they were still getting decent ratings. So Galactica was they ended up on Earth, but that was so they could film in New York or LA or whatever and not have to shoot these expensive at the time green screens of outer space and stuff. So so that was kind of that had a point. The point was we don't have any money. We can't film an actual thing. We have to use the sets around Hollywood.
It was so unforgivably bad.
Diane Badler. That was the evil
Jane
Diana.
Badler. Jane Badler.
Jane Badler. Yes, Jane Badler. The evil. She was Diana. That's right. She was Diana.
Yeah, she was Diana, and she was awful.
Yeah. Yep. She was a baddie, but she was a bad girl too. Once again, awful. not in very many movies. Oh no, wait, hold on. Never mind. She had a long career. To this day, she's still in stuff. 2024. Good for her. Good for Jane.
So interestingly, I was watching a TV show with my stepmom one night, an English murder mystery or whatever, and she said, "Oh, I always liked this character actor," and she said, "like the BBC." If you can get on at the BBC, they're going to stick you in shows forever and ever and ever and ever. And he was never he was never the lead. He was always like a B character actor, but he was in tons of stuff in the 70s and so on. And my stepmom says essentially like, whatever happened to him? And I said, I don't know. And I Googled him and he has a website. And so I looked up the website and I was like, oh, and I sent him a nice little note. And I loved this. This is how small a world it was. So lo and behold, it turns out that he and Catherine Schell, Maya from Space 1999, are like best friends, and their families, their kids grew up together, and they go on vacation everywhere.
That's
and
crazy.
So just too small a world about this. Now somebody mentioned Sliders. Sliders is the show. This is my favorite part of Sliders. Kari Wurr, the MTV remote control girl, gets on Sliders. She hates the other woman, hates the woman that had been on the show from the beginning, and manages to not only get her written off the show because she's got more star appeal, But do you remember that like the bad guys in Sliders were the Cro-Mags? The supposed Cro-Magnons that were sliding across the universe and taking over Earth after Earth after Earth. In the actual show, Word got the writers to not only get rid of the character, or not only to get rid of the actress, but they had the woman, the character, taken by the Cro-Mags to one of their camps where she was never seen again. It's one of the like pettiest things I've ever heard about.
So basically, what you're telling me is she was banging the writers, probably.
I will not speculate in any way, shape, or form, but
I will. I'm gonna go ahead.
It's remarkable. It is absolutely remarkable when you read the story of how like she swept onto the show, and she was like, "There's only room on this show for one woman, and you're out."
Which, by the way, very little talent. She. I'm looking at her resume, and it doesn't impress me. Impress me. She had very little talent. So yes, she was making something work there. I don't know what it was. It was not her talent though. Maybe other talents, but not that talent. Not the acting talent. No.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty. That is pretty petty because the other girl was pretty cool. I liked it. Yeah, that's what Foggy was saying. They started losing actors and writers, and it eventually just got so terrible. Like,
it was awful.
Yeah,
it was absolutely awful.
Okay, I'm going to give you a sci-fi show we haven't talked about, and once again, I'm going to hurt my nerd cred because I think this show is garbage. Whether you think it's hot or cold garbage is one thing, and that is Doctor Who. I cannot fucking stand that show. Now, I will tell you one thing. They should have just hung it up when they had the fourth Doctor. Who I think was the best Doctor and had some of the best shows. I remember I still remember some of those shows when we used to watch those on public television back in the 80s. I liked it. I liked the fourth Doctor. And the shows were good. The writing was good. But I have occasionally tuned into a Doctor Who episode over the years, and let me tell you, there's no Tom Bakers anymore in the cast. The writing might be a little better. I don't know. It just doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't do a thing for me. I'm willing to hear competing viewpoints for Doctor Who lovers out there. But I've gotten into arguments with Mike and Liz Stewart about this because they love Doctor Who. But I'm sorry, it just does not. The last however many seasons doesn't do a thing for me.
I'm sorry. I found this and I need to read this out loud.
Oh, dear.
Much later, it was revealed that Lloyd, the actress who played Wade Wells, much later, it was revealed that Lloyd and Werher did not get along primarily due to some snide comments Werher had made about Lloyd's engagement to a crew member. They wanted to return to the 3 men, 1 female dynamic, 3 male, 1 female dynamic of the first 2 seasons. It was decided that Lloyd was no longer required after she asked for her raise. Her character's fate to be trapped in a Cro-Mag breeding camp was allegedly Peckinpah's idea and the one that was pushed through by him alone. This is
unbelievable.
Yes, like it's bad enough that you wrote the actress out of the show. You decided to go there, and that's so bad. So I'll talk about Doctor Who, right? Like the problem Doctor Who has is that Who began as a children's show on Saturday mornings, and that's the roots of the show, right? Like Johnny Quest was written for prime time, but Doctor Who was written to be a children's program on a Saturday. And all the stuff that we cut our teeth on, like the Pertwee and Doctor Who and the Tom Baker, and then what's his name that was on All Creatures Great and Small, that came after Baker, like it still was a kids show. It was still a bit over the top kids show, and so that's fine and well. But the current Doctor Who is written for adults, and I understand that they believe that this is where they need to go. But we took what was a kid's show and was fun, and we've now given it just too much weight, and it's just sort of suffering under its
weight. It's like this of all the episodes I've watched over the last 4 or 5 years, it's like there has to be this great lesson.
There
We've got
has
to
to be
teach you a lesson. We
Yeah.
can't just fight Cybermen or the Daleks, or whatever. No, there has to be a modern lesson in here. And there's these really impassioned speeches, and and I'm like, I don't care. Just kill the.
We're being earnest
fight
because
the
we have
robot.
earnest things that we earnestly need to relate to you as earnestly as possible.
Daleks are ludicrous. Look at them. The Cybermen are ludicrous. You don't have to take this seriously. Just have fun.
A
Good
kid can
Lord.
believe that a Dalek is terrifying. An adult runs upstairs. And that's it. Although I think there's the episode where they finally show the Daleks hovering because they have anti-gravity. And I'm like, okay, so now you've tried to make
Because
this
they can't-
scary and they look even dumber.
Exterminate. Can't not go upstairs. Exterminate. Come down here so I can exterminate you. I
Your
cannot make it
non-ramp
upstairs.
technology thwarts us. Give me a break.
Yeah,
Whatever.
I just the last few years I'm just like, this. Every time I call it an episode, maybe I'm just catching the bad episodes because they don't watch an episode. So I go, oh no, that's not a very good one. Like,
no, you're not. This is why the ratings have tanked, right?
Yes, I'm like, how come everyone I catch is not very good? There has to be a good one. I would, by the power of elimination, I'd eventually hit a good episode, wouldn't I?
My favorite part about Doctor Who, because again, right, all the stuff that we saw in the late 70s, early 80s was all stuff that aired in 72, 73, 74,
Right.
75. It was still a children's show. It was written as a children's show. Yes, there were moments. And yes, it had an adult audience, but it was not serious literature. It was not serious television. It was a science fiction show that didn't take itself that crazy seriously. If you look at some of the costuming, you're like, they did this on a budget. They did this on the lowest possible budget imaginable. And that's okay. And I think there's something great about all of those early Doctor Who episodes that we saw. Like, one of my favorite ever is the series where they introduce Leela, right? And I'm part of the Sever team. Oh, it's the survey team, right? It's clever and it's interesting. The Talons of Wen Chiang, right? Where Mr. Sin is the homunculus. And one of the greatest throwaway lines ever is the Doctor talks about how the Philippine army was liberating Antarctica or something similar. And you're like, huh? What? Huh? And it's a throwaway line, but it's fun. And now if you have a throwaway line, there has to be a Wikipedia entry somewhere, and there has to be a detailed discussion about all this. And it's just
so somebody told me once, I said, man, you got to watch the Van Gogh episode. It's so moving. It's so incredible. I watched the Van Gogh episode. I thought it was mawkish.
Here's my ear.
Silly and just, it's where they bring him to the future and he gets to see that, yes, you are famous and people do appreciate you. I thought this would be something on American TV would have laughed at this in 1982. It was so over the top and mawkish and just embarrassing, I thought. I'm like, this is not good. This is just, anybody that weeps over this episode has not seen good television writing. I'm sorry, this is not good. And so I did see the Fallen Angels or whatever. That was actually a pretty good episode, but that could have been anything. It didn't have to be a Doctor Who. The Stone Angels. That could have been any horror show. That didn't have to even be a Doctor Who episode. That was just a good sci-fi horror episode.
I think the problem is that we now have fandoms that need to be fed. One of the greatest things that I've gotten to see in the last 6 months is I have gotten to enjoy the Star Trek community completely riven with hatred and despising the Section 31 movie. Now, I tried to watch the Section 31 movie, and I got 30 odd minutes into it and had to turn it off because it was so abysmally awful. And I say this as somebody who, I love Michelle Yeoh, right? Like the heroic trio and everything that she did in Hong Kong, and she's been squandered in the US. They put her in movies, right. and even though she won the Academy Award, I still think it still doesn't even highlight some of the amazing potential she has as an actress. Sure. It was a good movie, but it still doesn't showcase all of the things that she could do. But I watched Section 31, and it's an attempt at fan service, but it's done with no respect to what has come before. It feels like a terrible heist plot. It's bad. It's mirror universe, which I'm sorry, but if you magically put me in charge of Star Trek, I would forbid anyone from making anything mirror universe for a minimum of a decade. We need a break.
So Jim, if you haven't done this already, watch the Critical Drinkers review of episode 31, because he does this long review about why Star Trek is so bad now. It's not, he rolls it all into this thing like, why has Star Trek gone into the toilet to where Star Trek fans don't even care what you do anymore? They don't even want to see anything because what they've done over the past 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And it's really good. It's a very good breakdown.
I disagree because, like, let me say two things. I think Discovery. Hey, by the way, Spock had a human sister, but we never told you about it. I'm confused. But I will say that Strange New Worlds has been amazing and feels like what it was like when I watched the first Star Trek series.
Because they went back to what worked, right? They went back to what worked there.
And then the other side of the coin is that, sweet Jesus, Lower Decks has been the love letter to Star Trek fans that frankly nothing else has touched. And if you have not watched Lower Decks, you should watch Lower Decks. I have laughed out loud at so many things in Lower Decks, and really and truly, like, there are so many little gags that when Strange New Worlds decided to do a crossover episode with Lower Decks, I think it might be hands down the best episode of any Star Trek show, because the jokes land, they're funny, and the only thing I regret is that we didn't actually get to see a live action version of the Mistress of the Winter Constellations. And if you don't know what the joke is, I can't tell you. You just need to start watching Lower Decks.
I've got Star Trek led me to this. The new Star Trek. Star Trek jumped the shark when they started doing musical episodes. And I would say that of any show that feels like we have to do a musical episode. No, you do not need to do a musical episode.
No, I have to say that the Strange New Worlds one worked. The Strange New Worlds one actually landed. It was okay. It was, and the thing about it was, you knew it was coming, and you're like, okay, I know you're going to do a musical episode. They had the setup. This is why people are singing. Okay. But Jesus, the songs were funny and on point, and the bizarre musical numbers they dropped, they were like, what is wrong? And watching, watching Pike trying to grapple with the fact that all of a sudden people are singing and this is bothering him. It wasn't my favorite episode of Strange New Worlds, but it was okay. It wasn't great, but it was okay.
I think that when any show has a musical episode, it means the theater majors in the writing room have begged and pleaded, do we want to do a musical episode? And they say, okay, we're going to give you a musical damn episode. First of all, I hate musicals anyway. I can't stand musicals as it is, but I definitely do not want to see one of my shows doing a musical episode. I would disagree with you. I don't like.
And I think, okay, so Peter nails it, which is when Orville and Discovery were on, Orville was better Star Trek than Discovery.
It was. Absolutely.
Hands down.
Absolutely.
Hands down. Right?
Absolutely was. Because he got it. Because what's his name got it. He understood. He knew what people wanted to see.
And the best moment of the Orville, right? The moment where they've done this funny show and there's some great episodes. There's a Metamorphosis Alpha episode. I won't spoil it. But there's an episode where there is a reveal at the end of the season, right? And one of the main characters on the show, they go to his home world and they discover a thing. And they discover a thing that has far-reaching consequences. And holy shit, the moment of realization, you are literally like, oh my God, it's not just a mass grave, it's a gigantic mass grave. And then there's a reference from the ship where they call and somebody's like, yeah, the planet is littered with these. And you're just like, whoa. And they were brave enough to do it before Star Trek ever even thought of coming near something like this. And it was. The Orville was better Star Trek than when it was just Orville versus Discovery.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's because what's his name?
Seth MacFarlane.
MacFarlane's a huge fan. He was a huge fan of the original Star Trek, and it shows. And look, a lot of those episodes were kind of funny, but they could have been regular episodes of Star Trek. I mean, they were that good, and that a lot of them are just kind of borderline humorous. I mean, he really got it. He understood what people wanted to see. Yes. And I think absolutely, I think you're right on that.
Well,
but
and it had real human interaction,
yes.
real personalities interacting, which Discovery.
And see, that's why I would say why Strange New Worlds is so popular, because we're dealing with established characters. We're dealing with Kirk and Spock and Nurse Chapel and all these people, and so they already had a personality. The problem with the new Star Trek is I don't think they formed these personalities very well. I definitely don't think Discovery did. I think Discovery was terrible, absolutely awful.
The Discovery was just take the Star Trek name and it'll sell. Come on, nobody's had Star Trek in a while.
Awful.
It'll sell.
I saw people that I know, like, oh my gosh, I thought it was just awful. I couldn't watch it past season one. Thought it was terrible.
I will admit that I wasn't paying for season one, and I was so glad I wasn't paying for season one because it was
I may have pirated it, but no, it was terrible. But
it wasn't.
But the guy who does Critical Drinker has a good theory, and what I think is probably true too. He says what somebody needs to do is they need to first of all, they need to get the Star Trek name. They need to kill it for like 2 or 3 or 4 years. Just kill it. No more Star Trek for that long. They need to reboot it, but make clear that all the Star Treks you've seen up to now are in different universes, because do not try to reconcile all of them. Because the Kelvin universe doesn't match up with the original series, which even though now that the original series and Deep Space Nine and those followed a pattern, but after that it started branching off into all these little discoveries and Stranger Worlds. So you either just decide that you're going to either go back to the original universe and do the one that was next, the Next Generation, the one that was whatever the 3 or 4 shows were, or just start over with an entirely new one and just say whatever went before was a different universe Star Trek. We're doing our own thing, because you can't reconcile them anymore. They've branched off in too many crazy directions. You can't say that, well, we're going to do this off of the Strange New Worlds or we're going to do this off the Discovery. We're going to do this off. No, you have to pick your universe and go from there. And are they even doing anything with the Kelvin universe anymore? Is that even still a thing? Or
I think there
was a movie. It's in limbo. It's been in limbo forever, and Chris Pine is justifiably disappointed.
I would watch it because I like Pine, and that I like the cast. I thought
the cast was brilliant. And let's just make sure. Let's end with this. You've got a good movie when you have the world's greatest foil actor, Carl Urban, right? Let's just recognize the genius and majesty that is Carl Urban. He gave us the Judge Dredd movie we wanted. He absolutely is the epitome of what we want to see in a writer of Rohan. You name it, if Carl Urban is in it, it's going to be okay. And God, he was the best version of McCoy short of McCoy. In fact, I actually think he was a better McCoy than even McCoy was written originally.
You're going to get heat for that, but you're right, Jim. Yeah. I'm going to tell you what. First of all, Urban, he lifts up anything he's in. Like you said, he was the best Dredd and he's wanted to do another Dredd movie, and they just dropped the ball on that one. He wanted to do another Dredd movie, which would have been great. Because he was the best Dredd ever. Oh my goodness!
And as bad as I think the Boys adaptation is, he is still he's the highlight, because you think he can't possibly use the C word there, and yet he does every time. every time.
Yes.
So that's a great place to end.
Oh,
Let's
God.
end on Carl Urban being amazing, because that's a great place to call it a night.
Yeah.
God. Oh,
Folks,
yes.
there'll probably be a live or two from TotalCon. I will be
We
there
didn't even ask about
tomorrow.
TotalCon. Sorry, man. We should ask about TotalCon.
That's okay, man. I'll be at
Nice.
TotalCon. I'll be rolling up there tomorrow. If you see me, say hello. What else? Sunday, Inappropriate Characters comes back again. It's the end of the month. So I believe that's 7 p.m.
Okay.
Eastern.
John Miller asked, "Is there any genre show worth watching?" So I think Eric gave the strong recommend for Slow Horses that I absolutely agree
Oh my
with.
God, yes.
If you're not watching Slow Horses, you need to be watching Slow Horses. It's the best fucking thing on Apple Television, and I swear for emphasis. Mike, what do you think is a great genre show?
Okay,
right now?
and we're talking genre shows, and I'm going to tell you, this is a genre. Tomorrow night starts the new season of Reacher, and yes, it's
okay.
ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The books are ridiculous, but if you want to see a big dude who just likes to wander around and kick the shit out of bad people, this is your jam. The first 2 seasons fit that perfectly. The plots make no sense. No fucking sense at all.
Don't overthink it.
Just watch
enjoy the ride.
actor who was born to play Reacher go in there and beat the shit out of bad guys. If you want to see that you're done. So Reacher starts tomorrow night, season 3. I'm gonna watch. I don't even know what it's about. I don't care. I just want to see the big guy beat the crap out of people.
I'll end with this. I rarely say this. Tomorrow night, there's only one thing that you should be watching.
Uh-oh.
That is the United States versus Canada in the hockey game that truthfully 45 years from now, you're going to be talking about this one the way we all spent the last 45 years talking about the Miracle on Ice in Lake Placid. If you didn't know, Jesus, some geniuses came up with the 4-country hockey little mini tournament. So it's Canada, the U.S., Swiss, Switzerland, and Finland. And so on Saturday night, the U.S. and Canada squared off. What you need to know is that it was in Montreal, and lo and behold, during the United States national anthem, they booed. And they didn't just boo a little, they booed a lot. And let me rewind. The Canadian US and the U.S. women's hockey teams hate each other to a degree that it's hard to understand, but that is deeply rooted in the fact that the Canadian team found out that the U.S. women's team had a Canadian flag on the floor of their locker room that they walked all over. And when they found that out, they went into the game and they beat the shit out of the U.S. women's team. On Saturday night, the U.S. and Canadian men's teams played, and there were 3 fights in the first 9 seconds of the game. Now the U.S. won 3-1. Canada clawed its way to the final, and when the U.S. won, they made the final. But truthfully, tomorrow night is going to be a battle for the ages, because every person on the U.S. and Canadian teams are throwing it at each other like it's the NHL playoffs. And to Chuck, the guy said he feels that tomorrow night is going to be the biggest night of hockey in his life. This is the guy whose team won at home. They won the Stanley Cup at home in Game 7 last year, and he thinks tomorrow night's game is going to be a bigger deal. So I know Reacher's coming. You can watch Reacher afterwards.
Oh yeah, watch the hockey. Watch hockey first, and
watch this game.
Reacher's going to be your aperitif after dessert.
If you're at TotalCon, I will be at the hotel bar.
They are going to beat the living shit out of each other. And
this is what these games should be, because I'm sorry, the NFL All-Star Game is a joke. It's garbage. The NBA All-Star Game sucks. Baseball, okay, it's still what it used to be, but it's just one game. No, this is what All-Star Games need to be. Yes. Because they really don't like each other.
This tournament
they really don't like each other.
This is the first time and it's turned into something that's beyond what they hoped for. And the fact that it's in frickin' Boston.
Oh my!
It's in Boston, and it's going to be off the hook. So put on your seatbelts. You paid for the whole seat. You're only going to use the edge. It's the best genre on television tomorrow night.
I'll tell you what. You know why it's so? Another reason why it's so good is because hockey players don't make as much as baseball, basketball, and football players. So it matters to them still. They don't just go, "Yeah, I'm counting my money here. I don't want to get in a fight in this game. I might get hurt or something."
So
no.
Sidney Crosby on the Canadian team was asked about the booing after it happened. And a visibly disappointed and upset Sidney Crosby said, we respect the anthems. He was incredibly, incredibly upset because he knew what was going to happen. And it was exactly the fuse to get under the skin of the Americans. And literally, they had planned 3 fights for the moment the puck dropped. And that's exactly how it got started. If you haven't seen the footage, you need to see the footage because tomorrow night is going to be epic.
I might just watch it again. I think I'm going to watch it again tonight. Just get fired up.
Oh my God!
Those fights.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
all right, folks. Find me at TotalCon. Find me at the bar. We'll be watching hockey.
America.
America.
Freedom. Yeah. Eagles.
All right, folks. God bless.
Hit the subscribe button or something.
I'm putting up shorts now of like these live streams. You can hear